Most people don't realize the moment they need to rebuild themselves. It doesn't arrive with a warning sign or a dramatic announcement. It shows up quietly when effort no longer produces results, when motivation fades faster than it used to, or when you look at your life and sense a gap between who you are and who you know you could be. That moment is not failure. It is awareness. Every life eventually reaches a point where old methods stop working. The habits that once felt harmless begin to cost you. The excuses that once felt reasonable begin to sound hollow. You're still busy, still moving, but somehow you're not progressing. And deep down, you know that doing more of the same will only give you more of the same. Rebuilding yourself does not mean starting from nothing. It means recognizing that something within you needs upgrading. It means understanding that your results are not random, they are personal. They reflect your standards, your decisions, and your daily discipline. And when you change those, everything else begins to change with them. This is not a speech about overnight success or quick motivation. This is about responsibility, direction, and deliberate growth. Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. If your life is going to improve, it won't be because circumstances change first. It will be because you did. Personal responsibility is the foundation of all real transformation because it places the power of change back where it belongs in your own hands. When someone decides to rebuild themselves, the first and most difficult step is accepting that their current results are connected, directly or indirectly, to their own choices. This idea is uncomfortable because it removes convenient excuses. It means acknowledging that while circumstances, people, and events influence our lives, they do not ultimately control the direction we take unless we allow them to. Responsibility is not about guilt or self-criticism. It is about ownership. The moment you own something, you gain the authority to improve it. Many people remain stuck, not because they lack potential, but because they give away their power by blaming external factors. They blame their background, their lack of support, their past failures, or the unfairness of life. While these factors may be real, focusing on them keeps a person in a passive position, waiting for conditions to change before they do. Personal responsibility shifts the focus from why did this happen to me to what can I do now? That shift alone can change the trajectory of a life because it turns reaction into intention. Taking responsibility also requires intellectual honesty. It means looking at habits, patterns, and decisions without denial. If finances are unstable, responsibility asks what spending habits, skills, or decisions contributed to that situation. If relationships are strained, responsibility asks what behaviors, communication styles, or attitudes played a role. This is not about harsh self-judgment, but about clarity. Clarity creates options. Without it, people repeat the same cycles while hoping for different outcomes. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is that it restores self-respect. When someone stops blaming and starts acting, they begin to trust themselves again. Every responsible choice, no matter how small, reinforces the belief that change is possible. Keeping a commitment, showing up on time, following through on a plan, these actions rebuild confidence far more effectively than positive thinking alone. Confidence grows from evidence, and responsibility creates the evidence through action. Personal responsibility also reframes failure. Instead of being something that defines a person, failure becomes feedback. When responsibility is embraced, mistakes are no longer excuses to quit, but information to adjust. A responsible individual asks what went wrong, what can be learned, and what should be done differently next time. This mindset accelerates growth because it removes the emotional weight from setbacks and replaces it with curiosity and strategy. Rebuilding yourself through responsibility also means recognizing that no one is coming to rescue you. Support can help, guidance can inspire, and opportunities can appear, but no one can do the internal work for you. Waiting for motivation, permission, or perfect timing delays progress. Responsibility understands that action often comes before motivation, not after. You act because it is necessary, not because you feel ready. There is also a quiet strength in responsibility that separates those who grow from those who stagnate. Responsible people do not need to announce their intentions or justify their struggles. They focus on daily choices, knowing that life eventually aligns with consistent behavior. They understand that discipline is a form of self-care and that freedom is earned through structure. Ultimately, personal responsibility is empowering because it removes dependence on luck and places emphasis on effort, learning, and persistence. It turns life into a skill that can be developed rather than a mystery to endure. When a person fully accepts responsibility for their thoughts, actions, and responses, rebuilding no longer feels like an overwhelming task, but a series of manageable decisions made one day at a time. Guided by awareness rather than excuses, your personal philosophy is the quiet force that shapes every outcome in your life, whether you are aware of it or not. It is the collection of beliefs, assumptions, standards, and interpretations through which you view the world. Long before action takes place, philosophy has already decided what feels possible, what feels reasonable, and what feels worth the effort. When someone sets out to rebuild themselves, changing habits alone is not enough if the underlying philosophy remains the same. Behavior may shift temporarily, but it will eventually return to match the beliefs that support it. Many people live with an inherited philosophy rather than an intentional one. It comes from childhood experiences, cultural conditioning, past failures, and repeated messages from the environment. Over time, these influences form conclusions, such as, "This is just how life," or "People like me don't succeed," or "Trying harder won't make a difference." These beliefs operate quietly, guiding decisions without ever being questioned. A person may genuinely want better results, yet subconsciously act in ways that protect their existing worldview. Without examining philosophy, self-improvement becomes a constant uphill struggle. Your philosophy determines how you interpret events. Two people can experience the same setback and walk away with completely different meanings. One sees proof that they are incapable. The other sees feedback that they need a new approach. The event is neutral, but philosophy assigns the meaning. This is why some people grow stronger through difficulty, while others become discouraged. It is not the situation itself, but the lens through which it is viewed that determines the response. Philosophy also governs standards. What you believe you deserve influences what you tolerate. If your philosophy accepts mediocrity as normal, then discomfort becomes a signal to stop rather than a signal to grow. If your philosophy values growth and responsibility, discomfort becomes part of the process rather than a reason to quit. Standards shape daily decisions, and daily decisions shape long-term results. Raising your standards without adjusting your philosophy leads to burnout, because the mind will resist actions that contradict deeply held beliefs. Another powerful role of philosophy is how it frames effort. Some philosophies treat effort as proof of inadequacy, while others treat it as the price of progress. If effort is viewed negatively, consistency becomes difficult because every challenge feels like confirmation that something is wrong. When effort is viewed as normal and necessary, persistence becomes more natural. This shift alone can dramatically change how long a person stays committed to rebuilding themselves. Philosophy also influences how you relate to time. A short-term philosophy demands immediate rewards and quick validation. A long-term philosophy understands delay, patience, and compounding. People who rebuild themselves successfully adopt a philosophy that values progress over applause and growth over comfort. They are willing to plant seeds they may not benefit from immediately because their thinking extends beyond the present moment. Changing philosophy requires deliberate exposure to new ideas. Reading, listening, observing, and reflecting introduce alternative ways of thinking that challenge old assumptions. Over time, repetition of better ideas weakens outdated beliefs. As philosophy improves, behavior begins to change naturally rather than through force. Actions start to feel aligned instead of exhausting because they match an upgraded internal framework. Your future rarely exceeds the boundaries of your current philosophy. Income, relationships, health, and fulfillment tend to stay consistent with how a person thinks about effort, responsibility, and value. When philosophy expands, possibilities expand with it. Rebuilding yourself at the deepest level means choosing what you believe about life, yourself, and what is possible, and then allowing those beliefs to guide your actions with clarity and consistency. Discipline is often misunderstood because it is usually compared to motivation, even though the two operate very differently. Motivation is emotional and inconsistent, while discipline is intentional and reliable. When someone decides to rebuild themselves, discipline becomes the structure that supports change when enthusiasm fades. It is the decision to act according to commitment rather than feeling. And this distinction is what turns short-term effort into long-term transformation. Discipline begins with clarity. Without knowing what you are rebuilding toward, discipline feels like punishment instead of purpose. When the direction is clear, discipline becomes a tool rather than a burden. It is no longer about forcing yourself to do things you dislike, but about choosing actions that align with the person you are becoming. This shift changes the emotional experience of effort because sacrifice starts to feel meaningful rather than restrictive. One of the most powerful aspects of discipline is its cumulative effect. A single disciplined action may seem insignificant, but repetition turns into momentum. Small actions performed daily reshape identity. When you consistently show up, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who tries occasionally, you become someone who follows through. This identity shift is what sustains progress over time because behavior is easier to maintain when it matches self-image. Discipline also removes decision fatigue. Without discipline, each action requires negotiation with yourself. You debate whether to start, whether to continue, whether it is worth it. Discipline simplifies this process by establishing rules in advance. You act because you decided earlier, not because you feel like it in the moment. This conserves mental energy and reduces resistance, making consistency more achievable. Another important role of discipline in rebuilding is how it builds self-trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce internal credibility. Over time, this trust becomes a source of confidence that does not depend on external validation. You begin to rely on yourself, knowing that when something needs to be done, you will do it. This quiet confidence is far more stable than motivation fueled by excitement or praise. Discipline also creates resilience. Life inevitably interrupts plans, introduces stress, and tests commitment. Discipline provides a baseline that keeps you grounded when circumstances are unstable. Instead of reacting emotionally or abandoning progress, you adjust while maintaining core habits. This adaptability within structure is what allows long-term growth without burnout. It is important to understand that discipline is not about harshness or deprivation. Effective discipline includes rest, boundaries, and recovery. It recognizes that sustainability matters more than intensity. Over-discipline without awareness leads to exhaustion, while balanced discipline supports steady improvement. The goal is not to do everything at once, but to do the right things consistently. Discipline also changes how failure is experienced. When discipline is present, failure is not catastrophic because the system remains intact. You do not abandon the process due to a setback. You return to it. Discipline ensures that one missed day does not become a missed month. This perspective keeps progress intact even when perfection is impossible. As discipline strengthens, effort gradually becomes habit. What once required conscious willpower becomes automatic. This is when rebuilding accelerates, because habits operate even when attention is elsewhere. At this stage, discipline has done its work by installing systems that carry progress forward with minimal friction. Rebuilding yourself through discipline is ultimately about alignment between intention and action. It is the bridge that turns goals into reality and potential into results. Without discipline, desire remains abstract. With discipline, growth becomes practical, repeatable, and grounded in daily behavior rather than temporary inspiration. Growth always demands separation before it delivers expansion. And this is why letting go becomes a necessary part of rebuilding yourself. Many people focus on what they need to add, new habits, new skills, new goals, without realizing that progress is often blocked by what they continue to carry. Old behaviors, familiar excuses, and comfortable environments can quietly undermine change even when intentions are sincere. Letting go is not about loss, it is about alignment with who you are becoming rather than who you have been. One of the hardest things to release is identity tied to the past. People often cling to old labels because they are familiar, even when they are limiting. Statements like "this is just how I am" or "I've always been like this" act as invisible anchors. When you decide to rebuild yourself, those identities must be questioned. Growth requires you to outgrow certain versions of yourself. And that process can feel unsettling because it removes the certainty of the familiar. Yet holding onto an outdated identity is more dangerous than stepping into uncertainty. Letting go also applies to habits that no longer serve your direction. Some habits are obvious, while others appear harmless on the surface, but drain time, energy, or focus. Overindulgence in distraction, avoidance of difficult tasks, and reliance on comfort routines may not feel destructive, but they slow momentum. Growth requires an honest assessment of what your habits are producing. If they reinforce stagnation, they must be adjusted or released. This is not about extreme discipline, but about conscious choice. Another aspect of letting go involves emotional patterns. Resentment, guilt, and unresolved anger occupy mental space that could otherwise be used for creativity and progress. Carrying emotional weight into a rebuilding phase creates internal resistance, making change feel heavier than it needs to be. Letting go of emotional baggage does not mean denying what happened. It means refusing to let it dictate future behavior. When emotional energy is reclaimed, clarity and focus increase. Environment plays a significant role in growth, and sometimes letting go means changing surroundings. People are influenced by what they repeatedly see, hear, and engage with. Remaining in environments that normalize complacency, negativity, or distraction makes rebuilding far more difficult. This does not require abandoning everyone or everything, but it does require boundaries. Choosing where you place your time and attention becomes an act of self-respect. Letting go can also involve relationships. Some connections are built around shared habits rather than shared values. When growth begins, these relationships may feel strained because change disrupts the unspoken agreement to remain the same. This does not mean judging or rejecting others, but it does mean recognizing when certain dynamics no longer support your direction. Distance, not conflict, is often the healthiest response. Fear is another attachment that must be released. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of uncertainty keep people tied to familiar patterns. Rebuilding requires accepting that discomfort is part of the process. Letting go of the need for guarantees allows movement. Progress favors those willing to act without complete certainty. Letting go is ultimately an act of trust. It is trusting that what you are building is worth more than what you are leaving behind. It is choosing growth over familiarity and intention over habit. When you release what no longer serves you, you create space for clarity, strength, and alignment. Making rebuilding not only possible but sustainable. Investing in yourself is the most practical and reliable way to rebuild because it directly increases your capacity to think, act, and respond at a higher level. Unlike external investments that fluctuate with markets or circumstances, self-investment compounds internally and influences every area of life. When you commit to improving your skills, mindset, health, and character, you are not chasing quick results. You are expanding the foundation from which all results are produced. One of the most valuable areas of self-investment is learning. Skills increase options, and options increase confidence. Whether it is improving communication, developing professional abilities, or strengthening problem solving, learning changes how you navigate challenges. Knowledge alone is not enough, but applied knowledge reshapes outcomes. When you invest time in learning consistently, you shorten the distance between where you are and where you want to be because competence reduces hesitation and fear. Mindset is another critical area of investment. How you think determines how you interpret obstacles and opportunities. Investing in mindset means exposing yourself to ideas that challenge limiting beliefs and reinforce responsibility, growth, and resilience. This can come from reading, listening, reflecting, or meaningful conversation. Over time, repeated exposure to constructive thinking patterns rewires responses. Situations that once felt overwhelming become manageable because your internal dialogue has evolved. Physical health is often overlooked, yet it plays a foundational role in rebuilding yourself. Energy influences discipline, focus, and emotional regulation. When health is neglected, even the best intentions struggle to translate into action. Investing in sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery is not indulgent. It is strategic. A well-functioning body supports consistency, and consistency is essential for long-term growth. Physical investment creates the stamina required to sustain change rather than abandon it due to exhaustion. Character development is another form of self-investment with long-term impact. Traits such as integrity, patience, and responsibility shape how others respond to you and how you respond to yourself. Character determines whether progress is stable or fragile. When character is strong, success can be handled without self-sabotage. Investing in character means aligning actions with values, even when it is inconvenient. This alignment builds self-respect, which fuels confidence and persistence. Time is the currency of self-investment, and how it is spent reveals priorities. Daily choices, even small ones, accumulate into significant results. Choosing to spend time intentionally rather than reactively separates those who grow steadily from those who feel perpetually behind. Self-investment does not require dramatic schedules, it requires consistency. A short period of focused effort each day can outperform sporadic bursts of intensity. Self-investment also teaches patience. Unlike shortcuts that promise immediate transformation, investing in yourself produces gradual but durable progress. This patience reduces frustration because expectations align with reality. You begin to understand that meaningful change takes time, and that each effort contributes even when results are not immediately visible. This perspective keeps momentum intact during slower phases. Another benefit of self-investment is adaptability. As you grow internally, you become better equipped to handle external change. New challenges feel less threatening because your skills and mindset have expanded. You no longer depend on stable conditions to function effectively. This adaptability creates a sense of security that does not rely on circumstances. Investing in yourself is ultimately an act of belief. It is the decision to treat your potential as valuable and your future as worthy of effort. When done daily, self-investment transforms rebuilding from a struggle into a structured process guided by intention, consistency, and respect for long-term growth. Rebuilding yourself is rarely a dramatic moment of decision followed by instant change. It is a gradual process shaped by repetition, patience, and persistence. Many people fail not because they lack desire, but because they expect transformation to happen all at once. When results do not appear quickly, discouragement sets in. Understanding rebuilding as a process removes this pressure and replaces urgency with consistency. It shifts focus from sudden breakthroughs to steady progress. A process-oriented mindset recognizes that growth happens in layers. Some changes are visible quickly, while others take time to surface. Internal shifts in mindset, confidence, and discipline often occur long before external results appear. When someone expects immediate rewards, they may abandon the process before these deeper changes have time to solidify. Seeing rebuilding as ongoing allows room for invisible progress, which is often the most important kind. Patience plays a critical role in this process. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active commitment without immediate validation. It is continuing to act in alignment with your goals even when results are delayed. This kind of patience builds emotional stability because it reduces the tendency to react impulsively to short-term outcomes. When patience is present, effort becomes less emotionally exhausting, making consistency more sustainable. Rebuilding as a process also normalizes setbacks. Mistakes, missed days, and periods of low energy are not signs of failure. They are part of the cycle of growth. When rebuilding is viewed as an event, setbacks feel catastrophic. When it is viewed as a process, setbacks become adjustments rather than endpoints. This perspective prevents all or nothing thinking and encourages recovery instead of abandonment. Consistency outweighs intensity in long-term rebuilding. Intense effort applied briefly may create momentum, but it is consistency that maintains it. Small actions repeated daily shape habits, and habits shape identity. Over time, these habits compound, producing results that appear sudden but are actually the outcome of prolonged effort. Understanding this reduces the temptation to seek shortcuts, which often undermines sustainable progress. Time also plays a refining role in the rebuilding process. As time passes, intentions are tested. Initial excitement fades, revealing whether commitment is genuine. This phase is where most people quit, not because the process stopped working, but because they expected it to feel easier than it does. Those who continue learn to operate without emotional highs, relying instead on routine and structure. This maturity strengthens results and character simultaneously. A process-based approach encourages reflection and adjustment. Growth is not linear, and effective rebuilding involves observing what works and what doesn't. Instead of rigidly clinging to one method, the process allows for refinement. This flexibility improves outcomes because it aligns effort with reality rather than idealized expectations. Rebuilding yourself over time also reshapes identity gradually. Identity change does not occur through affirmations alone, but through repeated evidence created by action. Each small win reinforces the belief that change is possible. Each recovered setback reinforces resilience. Over time, these experiences accumulate into a new self-image that supports continued growth without constant effort. Viewing rebuilding as a process reduces comparison. When progress is measured against your own past rather than someone else's highlight, motivation becomes internal. This internal focus sustains effort because it is rooted in personal standards rather than external validation. Rebuilding yourself as a process creates durability. What is built slowly is less likely to collapse under pressure. Progress earned through repetition, patience, and persistence becomes stable because it is integrated into daily life rather than dependent on temporary motivation. This approach turns rebuilding into a lifelong practice of refinement, adjustment, and forward movement guided by intention rather than urgency.